Get your hands where I can see them! The command rips through the air, cutting through the wailing sirens. Red and blue lights flicker against the cracked pavement. Jamal Carter's fingers grip the steering wheel, knuckles white. His heartbeat thunders in his ears. Now! Hands up! Officer Rick Dawson's voice drips with hostility. Jamal inhales sharply, forcing himself to stay still. One wrong move, just one, and this could end like the headlines he's read too many times. He slowly lifts his hands, pulse hammering. Step out of the car, Dawson orders, tone sharp, full of assumption. Jamal swallows hard, his stomach tightening. He knows exactly what's happening, and he knows how quickly this could go wrong. Dawson's hand lingers near his holster, fingers twitching. The unspoken threat is clear. Step out, now! Jamal nods, every motion deliberate. His fingers move toward his seatbelt, cautious, controlled. No sudden moves, no mistakes. Click. The belt unlatches. Outside, murmurs ripple through the night as people gather, watching. Some pull out their phones, the glow of screens illuminating wary faces. Jamal eases the door open, stepping into the chilled air. Dawson tenses. His stance shifts, weight balanced, ready, waiting for an excuse. Jamal keeps his hands visible. He won't give one. His foot barely touches the ground before Dawson lunges. Jamal barely registers the impact before his chest collides with the hood. Hard. A sharp grunt escapes his lips as heat from the engine sears his cheek. Where'd you steal this car from? Dawson sneers, pressing him down. Jamal's breath shudders. It's my car. Dawson ignores the registration peeking from the glove compartment. Truth doesn't matter tonight. Metal cuffs clink against Dawson's belt. Jamal swallows his anger. Resisting isn't an option. He's seen how that ends. Behind him, the murmurs grow louder. But no one steps forward. Not yet. A ripple of voices, a shuffle of feet. Phones lift, lenses capturing everything. Jamal's face presses into the windshield. He sees himself reflected back, helpless. Someone in the crowd finally speaks. Hey, that's too much. Dawson doesn't flinch. Power still tilts in his favor. Jamal squeezes his eyes shut, inhaling deep. The weight on his back, the burn of humiliation. It's suffocating. Another voice. Are you recording this? Yeah. Dawson hesitates, a flicker of doubt. Jamal feels it too. Something is shifting. Then, a sound. The passenger door clicks open. The creak of the door cuts through the tension like a blade. Dawson freezes. His grip slackens, just slightly. Jamal turns his head just enough to see. The crowd gasps. Dawson's eyes widened. Disbelief. Then fear. Someone steps out. Jamal can't see who, but the reaction says everything. Dawson staggers back. His authority, his certainty, crumbles in an instant. A murmur spreads through the crowd, voices rising. Jamal breathes in, throat dry. Whatever happens next, it's big. Dawson's fingers twitch near his gun again, but his face tells another story. He wasn't expecting this. The moment stretches, a breaking point, then cut to black. Jamal Carter's world was built on discipline and ambition. Straight-A student, star athlete, debate champion. A young black man with a fire in his chest and a vision in his mind. While others saw obstacles, he saw opportunity. Law school wasn't just a dream. It was his way out, his way forward. He worked twice as hard, knowing the system wasn't built for people like him. But he refused to be defined by expectations. Jamal, you're going places, his mentor once told him. He believed it, until the world reminded him that, to some, no success could erase the color of his skin. Jamal never let the whispers break him, but they were always there. You're so well-spoken, a teacher once said, surprise laced in her tone. Are you sure you can afford that? A cashier asked as he pulled out his debit card. Just following protocol, a cop had muttered the first time he was pulled over, though no law had been broken. He walked through life carrying the weight of assumptions, forced to prove himself in ways others never had to. Each moment chipped away at him, but he didn't crack. He couldn't. His future depended on staying steady, staying smart, staying safe. But safety wasn't guaranteed. And one night, all his preparation wouldn't be enough. His mother had given him the talk before he even understood its weight. No matter how good you are, how smart, how careful. They will always see you as a threat. He used to think she was being overprotective, but life proved her right, again and again. If they ever stop you, don't argue, don't resist, just get home alive. He knew the rules, he lived by them. But some nights, even knowing the rules wasn't enough. The engine hummed beneath his hands, freedom coursing through his veins. His first car, his own, a gift from his uncle, a symbol of his hard work paying off. The world felt open, limitless. Then, flashing lights in the rear view. His chest tightened. He checked his speed. No violations, no reason. But reason didn't matter. His mother's words echoed in his mind. Just get home alive. He signaled, pulled over, hands steady on the wheel. Sirens wailed behind him. Then, a voice cut through the night. Get your hands where I can see them. The dream shattered. The nightmare began. Jamal kept his focus on the gas pump, but he felt the weight of a stare. Across the lot, Officer Rick Dawson leaned against his cruiser, arms crossed, gaze locked onto him. Not casually, not curiously. Studying, measuring, waiting. Jamal knew that look. It wasn't suspicion based on evidence, it was assumption, the kind that turned routine moments into battlefields. He forced himself to move naturally, inserting the nozzle, checking the total, acting as if the scrutiny wasn't there. But his pulse betrayed him, thudding in his ears. Dawson didn't move, didn't blink, just watched. Jamal finished up, got into his car, and took a slow breath. Don't give him a reason. Then, as he pulled away, the cruiser's engine roared to life. 1 block, 2 blocks, 5. The headlights stayed locked behind him, matching his every turn. Jamal's fingers tightened around the wheel. He kept his speed exact, signaled precisely, did everything by the book. But it didn't matter. He knew the pattern, the silent chase, the waiting game, making him aware that he was being hunted. Maybe Dawson was hoping for panic, a mistake, a reason to justify what he had already decided. Jamal forced himself to breathe. Maybe he'll just turn it off. Maybe this isn't happening. Then, flashing red and blue, lit up the night. Hope vanished. Jamal's stomach clenched. His mother's voice echoed in his mind. Pull over, hands visible, no sudden movements, stay calm. He signaled, slowed, and came to a stop. The cruiser's door creaked open. Boots on pavement, measured steps. Jamal adjusted his rearview mirror. Dawson was approaching, slow, deliberate, like a lion sizing up prey. He kept his hands on the wheel, fingers spread. His heartbeat roared in his ears. Dawson reached the driver's side, tapping the window with deliberate slowness. Jamal lowered it, keeping his expression neutral. Evening, officer, did I do something wrong? Dawson tilted his head, lips curling at the corners. The smirk made Jamal's skin crawl. Here we go. Dawson leaned in slightly, eyes sweeping the interior. Are you sure this is your car? The words were slow, mocking, a trap disguised as a question. Jamal forced himself to stay still. He had his license, his registration, proof. But proof never seemed to matter. Yes, sir, it's registered in my name, he answered evenly, already reaching for the documents. Dawson took them without looking, fingers drumming against the roof. New car, huh? What do you do for a living? Jamal's jaw tensed. I'm a student. Dawson let out a quiet chuckle. A student. Must be nice. The words dripped with doubt. Like success wasn't meant for him. Jamal swallowed the anger rising in his throat. Stay calm, stay alive. Dawson glanced at the papers, but his expression didn't change. He wasn't looking for answers. He was looking for a reason. And Jamal knew he'd find one, whether it existed or not. Jamal's fingers trembled on the wheel as Dawson's voice sliced through the tense silence. Step out of the car. Jamal swallowed hard. His mother's voice echoed in his mind. Move slow, keep your hands visible, stay calm. He unbuckled his seatbelt, careful, deliberate. One wrong move could be twisted into an excuse. Dawson's hand hovered near his holster, eyes sharp, as if daring Jamal to flinch. Jamal pushed the door open, stepping out with controlled movements. The pavement felt cold beneath his sneakers. You got anything on you I should know about? Dawson asked, his voice laced with something unspoken. "No, sir," Jamal replied, his voice even. Dawson scoffed. "We'll see about that." The weight of the moment pressed down on Jamal's chest. He wasn't guilty of anything, but that had never mattered before. Dawson shoved Jamal against the car, hands splayed on the cold metal. "Spread your legs," Dawson ordered. Jamal obeyed, jaw clenched. Not reacting was survival. The pat-down started rough, hands pressing hard against his shoulders, down his back. Then the shove. His chest hit the car with force, knocking the breath from his lungs. A quiet gasp escaped him. "What's wrong? Are you nervous?" Dawson mocked. Jamal gritted his teeth. Showing pain only made it worse. A murmur rippled through the crowd gathering nearby. Phones were out, recording, documenting. "You got no reason to do this," a voice called out. Dawson ignored it, his grip tightening. "Just a routine check," he said, his tone smooth, calculated. Jamal exhaled through his nose. Routine for who? Dawson's hand lingered at Jamal's pockets. Too long. Like he was waiting for something to justify what he'd already decided. Jamal remained silent. He knew how this worked. Dawson stepped back, turning to the crowd like an actor on stage. "This vehicle matches the description of a stolen car reported earlier," he announced. Jamal's stomach twisted. "That's a lie," he said, his voice tight but controlled. "This car belongs to me. The paperwork is right there." Dawson smirked, holding up the documents without looking. Funny how car thieves always have paperwork ready. Anger flared in Jamal's chest, but he forced himself to breathe. Anger could get him killed. "This is a mistake," Jamal said firmly. Dawson's grin widened. "Then you won't mind coming down to the station to clear things up." The words were a trap. Guilty until proven innocent. Jamal glanced at the cameras. Would the truth matter when the system was built to ignore it? His hands curled into fists at his sides, but it was too late. Cold metal snapped around his wrists. Jamal flinched at the unmistakable sound, the finality of it. A murmur spread through the crowd, the disbelief turning into something heavier. "He didn't do anything," someone shouted. Jamal lifted his chin, locking eyes with a woman recording. Her expression was a mix of rage and exhaustion. She had seen this before. Dawson tightened the cuffs. "Resisting, huh? Keep this up, and I'll have to add obstruction." Jamal's pulse pounded in his ears. Resisting. He hadn't moved. The crowd's energy shifted. More voices, louder protests. Someone stepped forward, but Dawson's partner, a silent presence until now, put a hand on his holster. A warning. Jamal exhaled through his nose. This wasn't about the truth. It was about control, and Dawson had it until the passenger door opened. A hush fell over the crowd. The sound of a car door creaking open cut through the tension. Jamal turned his head slightly, heart hammering. A man stepped out, his presence heavy with authority. Judge Carter. Dawson's smirk faltered, color draining from his face. Everything was about to change. Judge Carter's voice cut through the thick silence. "Uncuff him. Now." Dawson's fingers twitched against the metal restraints around Jamal's wrists. A flicker of uncertainty passed over his face, but he didn't move. Jamal held his breath, feeling the shift. Power, once so clearly against him, was tilting. The crowd, moments ago full of murmurs and anger, fell still, waiting, watching. Dawson's jaw tensed. "Sir, Judge Carter stepped forward. "Don't make me repeat myself." For the first time that night, hesitation crept into Dawson's stance. His grip had been firm, unyielding. Now it wavered. Jamal's wrists ached, the cold bite of metal pressing into his skin. But he refused to show it. He wouldn't give Dawson that satisfaction. The officer's partner shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe we should just uncuff him." Dawson exhaled sharply. His hands moved, fumbling with the key. The cuffs clicked open, slipping from Jamal's wrists. The crowd released a collective breath. Jamal rolled his shoulders, rubbing the red marks left behind. He met Dawson's gaze. The tables were turning, and Dawson knew it. Dawson's lips parted as if to argue, but then, realization. His eyes darted to Judge Carter, recognition dawning like a slow, creeping horror. Jamal saw it happen. The arrogance drain from Dawson's face, the certainty crack. This is a misunderstanding, Dawson stammered, stepping back. We were just following protocol. Protocol? Judge Carter's voice was dangerously quiet. That's your excuse? The crowd leaned in, their energy shifting from anger to something sharper, anticipation. Jamal flexed his fingers, watching Dawson's posture change. Just minutes ago, the officer had been untouchable. Now, he was calculating, trying to salvage the moment. Sir, I didn't realize what? Judge Carter's brow lifted. That you were violating a citizen's rights, or that you got caught? Dawson's throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. The confidence, the smirk, gone. The crowd murmured, feeding off the shift in power. This wasn't just a routine stop anymore. This was exposure. And Jamal? For the first time that night, he wasn't the one shrinking under the weight of fear. Judge Carter didn't break eye contact. Slowly, deliberately, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Dawson's breath hitched. His partner stiffened beside him. Jamal saw it. The way their shoulders squared, their bodies bracing as if expecting a blow. Because they knew. The judge's thumb moved over the screen. The air felt electric, charged with something that had been missing all night, accountability. Dawson forced a chuckle. Sir, there's no need for that. We can handle this professionally. Judge Carter didn't respond. He lifted the phone to his ear. The silence stretched. Then, Chief, we have a problem. Dawson paled. His partner shifted again, looking toward the patrol car as if debating an escape. Yes, the judge continued. Your officers just placed an innocent man in cuffs, in front of a crowd, on camera. The ripple through the bystanders was palpable. The energy shifted from tension to something sharper, vindication. Dawson's breathing turned shallow. His fingers twitched at his sides. Understood, Judge Carter said, voice even. I'll expect a response soon. He lowered the phone. Dawson swallowed hard. His voice, once booming with authority, now barely a whisper. Sir, what happens now? Jamal exhaled slowly. For the first time that night, Dawson wasn't the one in control. Jamal turned, locking eyes with Dawson. No fear, no hesitation. Dawson didn't smirk this time. His shoulders had dropped, his confidence shattered. This wasn't about defiance, it was about justice. For so long, the weight of situations like this had rested solely on Jamal's shoulders. The humiliation, the helplessness. But now, it wasn't his burden anymore. You really thought you could get away with it, Jamal said, voice steady. Dawson opened his mouth, but no words came. The crowd murmured, the cameras still recording. The weight had shifted, and Dawson felt it. For the first time, he was the one being watched. Judge Carter let the silence stretch. Then, with measured finality, he spoke. You're going to answer for this. Dawson didn't respond, because for the first time that night he had no power left to wield. It started with a single upload. Within hours it was everywhere. The footage of Jamal's unlawful arrest flooded social media, sparking outrage. Millions watched, their anger growing with every replay. The handcuffs, the hesitation, the shift in power. News anchors dissected every second, amplifying the conversation. Civil rights advocates called it a defining moment in the fight against racial injustice. Late-night hosts condemned it. Influencers demanded accountability. But it wasn't just about one video anymore. It was about a system exposed. The world was watching, and this time, it wasn't looking away. The police department had no choice. Effective immediately, Officer Dawson is suspended pending investigation. The chief's voice trembled as he read the statement. But it wasn't enough. Legal experts weighed in. Would Dawson face real consequences, or was this just damage control? Civil rights attorneys stepped forward. This isn't about one officer. This is about a culture of unchecked power. Dawson, once untouchable, now found himself drowning. Reporters swarmed. Former allies distanced themselves. For the first time, he was the one answering questions. And no answer could change the fact that his downfall had only begun. The streets pulsed with voices. "Justice for Jamal!" The chants echoed through the town square, filling every corner with defiance. Handmade signs covered storefronts. Businesses took a stand, some in solidarity, others out of fear. Local leaders scrambled. "We hear you," the mayor assured. But the crowd wasn't here for empty words. Protesters refused to be ignored. This wasn't just about Dawson. This was about every name that had been forgotten. Every story that never made it to the headlines. And as the voices swelled, one thing became clear. This town would never be the same again. Jamal stood before the microphones, his face set. "I wasn't the first, and I won't be the last." His voice didn't waver. "But I refuse to be silent." Cameras flashed, headlines formed. He wasn't just a victim anymore, he was a movement. Across the country, conversations shifted. Laws were questioned, policies were challenged. But Jamal knew change wasn't promised. "The fight isn't over," he said, scanning the sea of faces before him. "But this time, we're fighting together." And as his words traveled, one thing was certain: the world was finally listening. Imagine it was you. Cuffed, humiliated, judged before you even spoke. What would you have done in Jamal's place? Would you have fought back? Staying silent? Or demanded the justice you deserve? This isn't just Jamal's story, it's ours. Have you ever faced injustice? A moment where you felt powerless? Drop your story in the comments. Your voice matters. Because when we speak up together, we rewrite the narrative. This fight isn't over. But awareness is power. Like, comment, subscribe. Spread this story. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because change starts with us.